Question for you. What starts with an E, ends with an E, has a letter inside? Well, the answer is an envelope, and the letter in question may be a cover letter if you are applying for a job. So what's a cover letter? If you think back to the days that are pre-computer, pre-internet job searches, you might have needed to, well, you still might need to, mail in a paper copy of your resume. And instead of just sending the resume by itself, it was and still is typical to include a cover letter. The cover letter sits on top of that resume so that when someone opens the envelope, the cover letter is the first thing that they see. So what's the point of the cover letter? Well, first, it's to let the reader know what job you want, to let them know what you have to offer, and to suggest some other course of action, perhaps to ask for an interview. Now, we'll do our cover letters as formal business letters, because if you can do a formal business letter, then you can easily modify this to do, say, a business email or an attachment that you include in an online application. I could easily take the body of my letter here and put that into email format with my resume attached, if that's what the application requires. Now, there are a couple different types of business letter formats. We'll use the full block style, where everything is pushed up against the left margin. Our type will be single space, but we'll skip spaces between the different sections. And we'll start at the top by including the return address, which is our address. Now, in an email, this information would go at the very bottom after our name. Next, we'll have the date, preferably written out. So we'd say January instead of a number 1, just to avoid any confusion. Then we'll have the inside address. That's the name, the job title, and the contact information of the recipient. Then we'll have the salutation, dear so-and-so. We're going to make very, very sure that we've actually found the name of the person receiving this letter, that we've spelled it correctly, that we know what their gender is, that we're not assuming marital status. Dear Mr. Smith, dear Ms. Smith, dear Dr. Jones. On the off chance that we are unable to find an actual name to address this to, then perhaps we could say something like, dear hiring manager. But wherever possible, we do want to find the right name of the person who's supposed to get this letter. Next, we have the body of the letter, and that's where we're going to let them know what job we want, what we have to offer, and to ask for that interview. Finally, we'll have a complimentary closing, sincerely or warm regards, our signature in blue or black ink, not some huge kindergarten scrawl that covers half the page, but something that fits neatly between that closing and our typed name. And then finally, at the very bottom, we might type the word enclosure because we are enclosing something, in this case, our resume. Cover letters can be pretty formulaic, but there are a gazillion websites and resources out there that will offer you advice on how to go about writing one, and each will give its own particular insights and spins on this formulaic marketing tool. I really like this template here that's at some of the career materials at Virginia Tech, and I will give you a copy of this. But I'm basically going to follow this and go ahead and write a cover letter now. After that, we'll be able to modify it for an email or change the wording a little bit for different purposes. So I'm going to pull up a document, and I'm going to give this document a logical name. If I were to send this as an attachment at some point, I want the name of that attachment to let the recipient know what it is. So in this case, I'll call it cover letter Lamley 2021. To start out, you're going to include your address. Don't forget the comma between the city and the state. No comma between the state and the zip code. Go ahead and put your phone number and your professional email address. Let me just come up with a fake professional email. Okay, there's my bland fake professional email. Now, if when you hit down, you get that little link that appears, just press Control-Z to undo that. In an email, that would be fine to have a link. If you're turning a paper copy, doesn't make sense to have a hyperlink, right? Okay, you're going to skip a space and then write today's date, and you're actually going to write that out. So don't just put the numbers, because in America we do month, day, year, but in Europe they do day, month, year. And if I were in Korea, I would do year, month, day. It can get a little confusing. So if you just write January, there's no confusion. Okay, and a comma there between the day and the year. Now go ahead and skip another space, and then you're going to do the inside address. So this is the name and the contact information of the person who's receiving this letter. So I'm just going to make one up here. But in practice, you don't want to make this up. You want to know for certain who's actually going to get this letter. So Let's go Ms. I'm putting the name, their job title, the name of the company, and then the company's address. You want to make absolutely certain that you know who's supposed to get the letter, that you've spelled that person's name correctly, that you haven't assumed gender. So you haven't assumed when you see a Chris, for example, that Chris is a male instead of a female. You want to use gender neutral titles unless you know for certain that that person prefers something different. So if you say Mrs. Mary Jones and Mrs. Mary Jones is not married, you've made a mistake there. When I was in high school, I would have been absolutely terrified to call a company and to ask, hey, who should I address my cover letter to? I would be okay with doing it now because it's just a small phone call. No one needs to know who you are. And that means the difference between you getting this to the right person and looking professional versus not. Simple phone call to make, or you can find the information online, do a web search. Now, if you absolutely can't figure out who's supposed to get this thing, or you're maybe the job posting just says hiring manager, then that's fine. You can just address it to the hiring manager. And here's a little thing I saw online. If you don't have a contact person, how do you address your cover letter? Well, according to Saddleback College, 40% of companies prefer hiring, say, dear hiring manager, 27% like dear sir, madam, 17% to whom it may concern. You could also do dear human resources director, leave it blank. But again, dear hiring manager looks like it's probably the best way to go there. Next up, we're ready to begin our letter. First, our greeting. Dear Ms. Jones. And you can put a comma here or you can put a colon. I'm gonna put a colon because a colon is a little bit more formal. Then we get skip a space here and then we're ready to start our letter. We don't need to indent. Again, we're just gonna start right there in the left margin. The body of our letter can be pretty brief. We need to respect the fact that the person reading this doesn't have a lot of time, but we still need to accomplish a few things. So we need to let them know what job we want, particularly important if there are multiple openings at this company. We need to let them know what we have to offer, and then we need to ask for an interview. So my first paragraph, let's just get down to business. I am writing to express my interest in applying for the dental assisting position. Now, if you know someone at that company, this would be a great time to mention that. You could also let the reader know how you learned about the job, and you could also give some brief information about yourself. So perhaps I'll write this. I learned about this opening from Chris Hall, my teacher at CTEC. And if you say CTEC, if they're in Newark or Granville or the area, then you can assume that they know what CTEC is. But if you're applying somewhere else, you might say Career and Technology Education Centers of Licking County, a career tech school in Newark, Ohio, something like that. Just again, don't assume people, make a judgment call as to whether they're going to need a little explanation or not. Where I am a senior in the dental assisting program. The next paragraph, we might go ahead and say something that shows we've done a little research about the company, we know something about them, and that this isn't just like a generic letter we're sending to everybody. We also need to let them know what we have to offer. And we can highlight some of the skills on a resume, but again, the resume's on the next page, so we don't need to just repeat everything that's there. This is a great place to perhaps show a little personality, although, don't overdo it, to show that you've got some writing skills that you can really communicate. I mean, it's one thing to put communicates well in your resume. The letter's a way to show that that's true. And this can be a place too to talk about some of the stuff that really doesn't shine through quite so well in the resume. So let's say this is a company that has just a really warm, friendly, inviting atmosphere. They're really dedicated to excellent customer service. And you want to talk about how that really matches your personality. Then this is a great place to explain that. Now, you don't want to give your life story. You definitely don't want to give the sort of personal details, religion, marital status, those kind of things don't belong in this letter. So maybe what I want to say here is that I have a lot of admiration for the way OK Company is so involved in community outreach. I think your Save a Smile program is a great example how businesses can benefit. I want to say be a benefit to the community. I just used the word community. So I'm going to have to tinker with the wording here. I'll change the language later. This is a rough draft. I have no problem revising later. And I would love to be such a service-oriented company. Now here's what I'm gonna make some stuff up here because I don't know actually all the specific details of the particular license you guys get. So if you're a dental assisting student and this is inaccurate, forgive me. I'm just guessing here. Okay, but you could say I recently earned my dental assisting and radiographer's license. Again, I don't know if this is exactly what you would what it's called. So fix that yourself. And I'm eager to put them to work. Please refer to my enclosed resume for a complete list of my skills. And when you write the word resume, if you're like, how do I get those little accents on the E's with this crazy French word? If you go up here to insert, special characters, search for the E, and then choose the one where the accent is going upward towards the right. And then just click on it, it'll get inserted. And then you can either insert it again or you can copy it for that second little E that needs the accent. It's kind of a pain, but you know, what can you do? Attention to detail, right? Now, maybe you want to mention again, you want to go through something specific that was in that the job application. Maybe you say in the your job posting on Indeed, you requested a candidate willing to put in long hours. And I'd like to reassure you that I have a flexible schedule and can work overtime whenever needed. As a student, I frequently put in 60-hour weeks between school and my current job at Kroger. Okay. Now I'm going to read through this again. I'm going to tinker with the language. I'm sure I've got plenty of sentences that sound awkward and proofreading errors. But again, this is a first draft. I'm getting the words on the page. Now let's move on to that third and final paragraph. Although if you've got more things to say, feel free to break this into shorter paragraphs, but don't let your letter get too long. In fact, we may be doing an exercise later where you do this whole thing in just 4 sentences. Okay, now here at the end, this is where you say what you want the result of this letter to be, which is probably an interview. Again, you don't typically get the job straight from the posting. Typically the goal is you get the interview, and then the interview, you give all the great reasons why you're wonderful, and then you get the job from there. So maybe you say, I would appreciate the opportunity interview for this position at a time convenient to you. Or if you've got a schedule, say that. Now let's say we've got a schedule. Available every day. I can be available. If you're working this big long job, I don't know. I'm trying to think how the best way to phrase that is. Let's just say I'm available between 3 and 4:30 on weekdays and all day on Saturdays. Please contact me at, you could say the number listed above or just repeat it, 614-444-444, or at, now I might say, and again, Control-Z will get rid of the blue line if you get a hyperlink and it's going to be a paper document. I think I want to say I'd be happy to provide any other information you need. And maybe you just want to say thank you. Thanks for your consideration. A little friendly exclamation point there. Okay. Now you might also mention how you plan to follow up. So if I haven't heard from you within 2 weeks, I'll follow up by phone call. There's nothing wrong with following up, although, calling every single day could get pretty annoying. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip a space, write my closing, so something like regards or sincerely. I'm going to go with sincerely. Put a little comma there, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And then I'm going to type my name. And that's going to give me just enough space here that I can sign this thing. I'm going to sign in blue or black ink, no green, no purple, blue or black ink, and it's going to just fit really nicely in here. I'm not going to do something that stretches all the way across the page like I'm in kindergarten. It's the first time I've tried cursive. Again, just a nice signature, and I'm not going to forget that signature. Believe me, if there's something that needs to have a signature on it, you forget it, there'll be problems. I remember once I forgot to sign tax documents back when I sent them in by mail. That was not good. And then I'm going to skip, I forget how many spaces. It's a couple spaces. I think it's like 4, but skip some spaces. And then type enclosure, because you're going to close your resume. And then write resume. And again, we're going to use those accents, so you can go up to insert, special character, search for the E, choose the one where the accent is pointing up towards the right. Resume. So give your overall thing a glance and just make sure that it looks like a cover letter and that you haven't done something weird and crazy here. If you want to use like a personal letterhead here at the top, that's a possibility. There may be a template or something in Docs that'll give you some ideas there. Now, as far as font goes, it needs to be probably 10 at the smallest, 11, 12. It depends on the particular font. Like 12 is a nice readable size for Times New Roman. Arial looks good at 11. I think it looks good at 10 too, but my eyes are getting old. Now you might want to use the same font that you've used for the body of your resume, just so they kind of look like they go together. Not a huge deal. I think I used good old Times New Roman in the body of mine, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. But don't do anything weird with font. Again, Calibri, Arial, Times New Roman, those will do, or something that looks very similar to them. Make that a 12. Okay, you should not be exceeding this page. Should not, shoot, that looks a little longer than I want. Maybe I need to suppress my content a little. Or maybe I'll drop it back down to an 11. So again, your address, comma between the city and the state, not between the state and the zip code, your phone, your school email, or your bland professional email, a space, the date, comma between the day and the year, a space, the name of the person getting the letter, their job title, their company name. And if you go ahead and use this or figure it out for real, that'd be great. If you put in a fake one, I'm never going to know, but it should look real. Okay, there are the name of the company and the company's address. Skip a space, the greeting, dear Mr. So-and-so, dear Miss So-and-so, dear Dr. So-and-so, a comma or a colon. I'd prefer a colon, it's more formal. Let them know what job you want. Sell yourself for the job. You might refer to your resume. You don't need to repeat everything in there. You could kind of tease them that you've got stuff in your resume. But again, this could be a chance to talk about some things that maybe aren't on the resume. Okay, and then ask for that interview. Mention your availability. Say thank you. Be courteous. Be polite. Sincerely, or some other nice closing. Skip 4 spaces. Just enough room for that signature. Type your name. And then you've got enclosure, resume. Before I send this thing out into the world, I need to read it carefully once, twice, maybe 3 times, and maybe get someone else to read it just to make sure I've got no errors. Okay, so I can look through this thing, read it. Helps to read it out loud. 123 Main Street, Granville, Ohio, 432-3614-444444. Melanie Lamley at gmail.com. I've got the date. Looks right. Spelled the name right. Got the job title. Got the company name. I've capitalized the parts that need to be capitalized. Got the address. Skipped a space, dear Miss Jones, colon. I'm writing to express my interest in applying for the open dental assisting position. At your company? Let's add that in, that'll sound better. Company. I learned about this opening from Chris Hall, my teacher at CTEC, where I'm a senior in the dental assisting program. I have a lot of admiration for the way OK Company is so involved in community outreach. I think your Save a Smile program is a great example of how businesses can benefit the community. I've used community quite. That was something I knew I was going to have to look at later. Maybe I need to do a synonym, check synonyms, go to synonym dictionary and find a different word. Can benefit the surrounding. I'll just put surrounding area for now. Great example of how businesses can benefit the surrounding area, and I would love to be a part of such a service-oriented company. In your job posting on Indeed, you're requested a candidate willing to put in long hours, and I'd like to assure you. I'd like to assure you. Do I want that or do I just want to say, I have a flexible schedule and am willing to work overtime whenever needed. As a student, I frequently put in 60-hour weeks between school and my current job at Kroger. Maybe I will add that back in. Okay, let me assure you that I have okay. I recently earned my dental assisting certificate and radiographer's license, and I'm eager to put them to work. Please refer to my enclosed resume for a complete list of my skills. I might tinker some more here. I'd appreciate the opportunity to interview for this position. I'm available between 3 o'clock and 4:30 on weekdays and all days on Saturdays. Please contact me at 614-444 or at melanielamley@gmail.com. I'd be happy to provide any other information you need. Thanks for your consideration. Sincerely, Melanie Lamley. I'm going to make sure to sign in blue or black ink and close your resume. I know that whenever I tinker with something, like I make a couple of word changes, then I know I need to read the whole thing again, because sometimes when you tinker, you accidentally put in some typos. And again, that usually I need to read through things at least twice, but I'll spare you that right now. There's a little bit of work that goes into polishing, and it's not a huge amount, but it's work you need to put in. As I said earlier, there are a gazillion websites out there that will give you lots of advice on writing a great cover letter. And if you're applying for a job for real anytime soon, I would recommend looking at some of those and paying attention to what they have to say, to think about ways that you could polish what you have even further to make yourself really shine as a candidate. But if you've got this much on the page, then I think you have a great start towards knowing what a cover letter ought to look like.